Hello and welcome. This is Captain Aquarius coming to you doing business again as Dan First on March the 7th of 2017 from here in my beloved Cairo, Egypt, where I have just completed a set of book signing events for my new book, Maps of Power, the astrocartography of the great, the beautiful, and the terrible, and also 3 engagements for astrology readings before I head into the Sinai Desert for 10 days for a period of retreat before I go to Ireland on March the 19th to get ready for events that I will do in Dublin and Cork. The March 12th full moon comes in the month of Pisces. This is traditionally the month in which the zodiac year has now come, among other things, to its point of exhaustion before the sun resurges by entering the Mars-ruled warrior sign of Aries on the spring equinox on March 21st in the northern hemisphere, the fall equinox in the south. And so this predictably is a time when the Piscean energy of dissolving all boundaries is very much in effect. This is when rules go out the window. This is when predictable political and social and cultural and religious orders are turned on their heads. And that's why this is the time when people traditionally celebrate all kinds of comedy festivals. For example, the great Hindu festival of Holi is celebrated now. This is the time when people run around throwing brightly colored powders at each other. And it's also the time of the Jewish festival of Purim, celebrating the comical event, you see, in which Queen Esther saved her people from persecution by a police official named Haman by appealing to the king and engaging his better instincts of justice and compassion. So it was yet another instance of how it happens in the comic universe that the person who has less power but is more intelligent has a way of outwitting the one who is powerful but slow. And this is why this is the traditional classical theme of comedy. Charlie Chaplin once said, "Give me a cop, a park bench, and a pretty girl, and I'll make a comedy everywhere." His spirit will be very much with us this year, and as we're about to see, as we look at the chart for the full moon, we shall very much need him. I mention in passing another small comic element that is relevant here, that the Kyoto Journal has recently celebrated its 30th anniversary of publication, and they have honored me by reprinting the English Kyogen play. That is a play based on the traditional Japanese comedy called Kyogen, which I studied in Japan in the 1980s. And so if you are interested in this, go email me, go to danfirst.com, send me a message, and I'll send you a link to the issue of Kyoto Journal that has this piece. And so we begin. We are going to look at this very powerful full moon chart that is cast for Cairo, Egypt. Why Cairo, apart from the fact that I love this place and this country, which is wonderful and horrible, beautiful and squalid, happy and miserable, joyous and depressed, measurelessly creative and yet desperate at the same time? Because this is, again, a kind of microcosm of what is happening on the planet in general. This is a measurelessly talented place in which people simply cannot get the country to work in a way that will benefit them, largely because the economy is so controlled by the military establishment that if any change occurs in the economy, some senior military officer is going to lose money. No wonder they're sitting on it and the country does not change. Add to that the fact that the government of Mohammed el-Sisi, the current military strongman floated the Egyptian pound not long ago, and it sank in value from 8 pounds to the dollar to the current rate of 15 pounds. It got as bad as 18 pounds to the dollar. People are flocking to Egypt, and they are arriving here in other ways as well. This is naturally a place where people from the Muslim world are seeking refuge, and it is also a place, as is the case throughout the Muslim world, that the decision about whether a couple is going to have children is not really something that they consider to be in their hands. It's in the hands or the mind of Allah, and this is why people do not practice contraception. Predictably enough, it happens again yet here, when the population has boomed from the 80 million people who were in Egypt when I got here in 1984, now 33 years later, to 94 million people. It happens because people do not practice contraception, and it happens because when times get tough, people do not produce fewer children. In some cultures, they produce more, so that when the parents themselves are getting older, there will be more people to take care of them. This is something that is true throughout the world, that is governed by poverty consciousness. And so we are dealing with some pretty severe conditions here, and Egypt is an extreme case of what is going on. We look now at the chart itself, and you will notice, well, it's cast for 4:53 a.m., 4:53 p.m. on March the 12th of 2017. And naturally, the alignment of planets that you see within the horoscope wheel will change according to other locations. And so this is the alignment that is specific here to Cairo, Egypt at this time. You notice one thing immediately, that the emphasis in this chart is overwhelmingly on relationships, because one of the ways to divide the chart in two pieces is to divide it left and right. The left side, from the 10th house down to the 3rd, you see the house numbers there around the middle of the wheel, the center, are the houses that represent individuality, the person projecting his or her energy and intentions outward into the world. The right side, by contrast, is the side of relationships. That is, relationships specifically, in this case, with the spouse in the 7th house of marriage, love relationship, and partnership in general, the relationship with children in the 5th house, with the mother in the 4th house, and the 8th house, as you can see, also is very highly occupied here and is significant because it is the house of changes. What makes this chart very unusual, apart from the preponderance of planets on the right side of the chart, thereby emphasizing the dimension of relationship more than anything else at this time, it is the uncommon degree of afflictive alignment that we see here. You know, you recognize, I think by now, if you have been following this series of videos and charts, that for a long time now, and for months really, we have been under one formation which is called a T-cross, consisting of two planets which are across the wheel from each other, with a third planet at the 90-degree point between them. Here we see that familiar T-cross again. If you look in the 2nd house at the position of the planet Jupiter, who looks like the number 4 in Libra, he is opposite to the position of Uranus, whom you see there in the 8th house, the sign that looks like the letter H with the little ball hanging from the crosspiece. And look down in the 5th house and you will see that Pluto at 19 degrees of Capricorn is at a 90-degree angle to both of these other points. And to review briefly what we have looked at them, concerning them, you may remember that Jupiter is the money, the bank, the government, the institutions of established wealth and power. He is opposite to Uranus, the revolutionary, the bringer of change, the magician, the trickster, the producer of spectacular and often upsetting events, and both of them are in the 90-degree angle, which I do not consider necessarily only to be afflictive. It's an angle of leverage in which the planets may assist us at a time when we need to shift something that we have not been able to budge, but which we are able to use with the planet's help in order to get something to move. The planet Pluto is death and regeneration. It is the sweeping away of what can no longer stand. As you may remember, if you've been following astrology events for years now, the square, the 90-degree angle between Pluto and Uranus there in the 8th house, has in fact been going on since 2012. No wonder the rhythm of the time, the fundamental theme, has been the sweeping away of what can no longer stand, the introduction of what must now come, the desperate, white-knuckled effort on the part of controlling authorities to do absolutely everything they can to maintain their position while the rest of the people become more and more inventive about asserting their right to be powerful and prosperous and free. And so this is the rhythm of the time, and it continues. However, there is, believe it or not, a second T-cross in the chart, and this consists of the position of the full moon itself opposite to the sun in Virgo. You see the moon there in the first house of the chart at 22 degrees of Virgo, and she is opposite to the sun, who is there in the 7th house at 22 degrees of Pisces. The sun is in conjunction with Chiron the healer, who looks like the letter K, and with Mercury, the messenger, the planet of communications, intelligence, organizational thinking, and so on. And all of these, in their opposition to each other, are in another T-cross with the planet Saturn, who is in the 4th house in the sign of Sagittarius. It is unusual enough, you see, in a chart for one T-cross to occur. Or I should not say it's unusual, but it is afflictive enough. This is frankly not exactly tiramisu and champagne. This is something that requires a certain amount of discipline, courage, and stamina and intuitiveness to get through, because planets, 3 of them here in one T-cross, are aligned in an unfriendly relationship with each other, and in the other T-cross there are a total of 5 planets who are engaged in this alignment. And so this means then that conditions in this chart are not exactly a welcome wagon. They are not exactly the planet coming out like old ladies in aprons offering us apple pies and otherwise driving the welcome wagon through us. This is going to require a certain amount of ingenuity, communal effort, and determination if we are going to maintain our equanimity and maintain our consistency of motion and of holding the higher frequencies of love and courage and joy. And so we have got our work cut out for us at this full moon. Is it any wonder, you see, that the desire that people have to celebrate comedy, the human condition, in all of its joy and its heartbreak, its beauty and its pain, is so prominent here, and this is why it will behoove us much to be as inventive as we can in practicing the comedy of compassion. That is, comedy as an art form that doesn't only mock or exclude or ridicule, but which finds its way in the way that true comedies do, to weather all of the battles and disagreements and misunderstandings and come together at the end of the play with people joining each other in a ceremony of union, a feast, and ideally a marriage, which affirms that life will go on. Venus is prominently positioned here naturally in the 8th house in such a way she's in a 120-degree angle with the bottom center point, which is called the nadir, the foundation of the chart. Let us celebrate. Let us be conscious